Good afternoon, everyone. I'd like to call the Public Safety Committee meeting for February 2nd to order. I'm Stephen Havey, your committee chair. First on the agenda, please, we'd like a roll call.
Mr. Havey,
Here.
Mr. Rumfelt,
Here.
Mr. Barnes,
Present.
Mr. Sear, Mr. Demick,
Here.
Mr. Harris.
Here.
Mr. Healy,
Here.
Mr. Stockin.
Here.
7 present, 1 absent.
Thank you. Next up, we have the approval of minutes for January 5. Mr. Rumfelt will move that. We have support somewhere. Mr. Harris. Thank you, sir. Any discussion on the minutes? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? And those are approved. Thank you. First up is our public defender, Mr. Carter. Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon, everyone. There's no prepared comments today. I'll rest on the report to address any questions, if any.
Mr. Carter, on the report, it appears that misdemeanors and violations, business is up. Is that correct?
From last year with COVID, yes,
Huh,
very much so.
okay. Just wondering if you had a comment on that at all. COVID would do it, I think. Thank you.
Thank you.
Questions? Any more questions for Mr. Carter? Thank you, sir. Oh, one question, Mr. Barnes.
Always got something to say.
Thank you, Mr. Barnes.
I was watching television news this morning, and the new mayor of New York City came out strongly in support of making some changes to the state law on bail reform and so on and so forth. Could you give us an idea what you think should be changed?
Can't answer that in depth at this time, but I'd say New York City is a whole different animal, right? The law was put in place, and what happens here is a lot different from what happens in New York City, and so changes for here may not, apply the same as it does down there.
Well, as far as the catch and release type of thing that we read about all the time, is that happening here?
In some cases, yes.
And my question, I guess, is, do you see where that should be some corrections made to make it a little bit better as far as law enforcement?
There could be made, but the way the law is structured, a lot of times with the catch and release and those individuals that's rearrested, the courts have adapted to use the law and used the pretrial release program as another way of monitoring those individuals to try to avoid them getting in further trouble. And when they do step out of line, probation is quick to file violations, and judges are very quick in responding to sign the warrants to have them picked up. And now we step in and try to argue for their re-release. And I'll tell you, we haven't always been successful with getting them re-released. So many of them end up sitting back in jail with no bail or high bail that they can't make, but that's built into the law.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Nothing else? Thank you, sir.
Thank you, everyone. Bye.
Mr. Jeff Lucky. The Emergency Management and Fire Director, sir.
I can touch up on a couple things. Axton Bridge, yes, we were notified right away when the closure occurred. We were also notified a week ago about the 12-ton limit. So Angelica was already notified. Belfast put in place 12-ton limit. That only one of the
Jeff, I think your mic's not on.
and what is
Thank
That
you.
looks better. Sorry. So the 12-ton limit was planned to be in place. That limited them to one truck they could get across to one ambulance. So the change really wasn't anything dramatic this morning as far as that 911 center, other than Angelica will respond to all fire calls, and MTS has been added to all EMS calls on the backside of the river on automatic first tone for the area they weren't already covered in. It does affect the town of Belfast, Canandaigua, and town of Allen. Belfast has coverage in that area. I anticipate maybe a little bit more changes coming from the chief. Again, it just came out today. Maybe short track, we'll put on automatic too for the town of Allen and town of Canandaigua or something too, but I don't think anything more than that. He's already done a great job of addressing that concern. The other thing under Mr. Healy, Legislator Healy, I looked at it real quick. It's about 4.5 miles, 5 minutes while I was sitting back there as far as the detour. One side, so it'd be a 9-mile detour, 10-minute detour. Anything else on the bridge? Again, it's great concern for everybody in the area. We hope that that'll be resolved. EMS classes, we started our spring EMS classes. 8 people in the CFR class, 21 in the EMT class, and we have 16 advanced EMTs testing out that from their classes they took this fall. We did have our meeting with EMS captains and legislators were present. One of the big fires we had was the old Agway in Rushford. Very large fire, very quick. I can report based upon security cameras that it burned in the building for at least 20 minutes before anybody ever noticed. There wasn't any possibility for anybody to really see it for the last 5 minutes. But a very old structure, burned quickly, still undetermined, not able to completely determine what the cause was, but everything points towards accidental. And great response, great dispatch did a great job. Again, we had 3 different counties there, so coordinating that and the timing and the information was great. No one was injured at the fire, and everybody missed the Bills game.
Yeah, Mr. Healy.
That property in Rushford, it's in close proximity to our DPW shop up at that location, is that correct?
Correct.
And I understand that they made those facilities available for fire and EMS personnel, is it?
Yes, as a warming spot.
Right, okay. So I think good coordination of efforts there, and our appreciation to DPW and all the volunteers that respond to the scene.
Thank you. Just added on, we've been having a recruitment and retention meeting before our fire advisory board meeting. We've got a committee that through the Fire Chiefs Association, looking at how to improve on that. We've come up with a couple different ideas, and hopefully here soon we'll be able to relay a couple of things that we're working on. The other last thing is our office has been busy with is the take-home test kits and the masks. I know Jennifer was part of the handout. I'm not sure who anybody else was possibly, but we've had 2 pushes out to all the county libraries and the town clerks for every town that didn't have a library. We did that. The library system offered to do the shipping for us. We filled the van twice for them. That was awesome on our end. The dates have gone over well. Obviously, it just happened again here this last Saturday with a couple that weren't open on Saturday for Sunday and Monday. But it's been well received, and we will evaluate that as we go forward. That's all that I have on my report. Any questions?
Very good. Any questions for Mr. Waukee? I do want to say that the committee does appreciate the effort that you and your staff did in passing out and providing the community with masks and also the test kits. I see on your report that test kits were only enough to provide 4% of our population, which is disappointing, but thank you for the effort.
Right. And that was just a special one. Again, our Department of Health's been dealing with this for a lot longer. We're just there to assist. This was a special shipment from Governor Hochul that went to the EMs, but thank you.
Okay. Anything else for Jeff? Thank you, sir.
Yep.
Okay, we have the district attorney, Mr. Jones. Sir.
Good afternoon, everyone. Not a lot to add to the report that you can see from the prior month. Felonies down a little bit, misdemeanors are up by about the same margin. Everything else is kind of in range. The The four miscellaneous there are fugitive from justice cases. Apart from that, nothing out of the ordinary. So, take any questions if you have.
Yeah. Any questions for Mr. Jones?
You want to know my opinion on bail reform? Or? You don't want to know my opinion on bail reform?
Yes, I'd like to hear.
You probably already know. You
Thanks a
know.
lot.
Anything? Okay.
Anything
Thank you all.
else? Anything else?
All good?
Okay.
All right, everyone.
Thank you,
Thanks
sir.
a lot. Have a great afternoon.
All right, you too. Mr. Brian Perkins, sir. Stop DWI and,
Thank
Public
you, sir.
safety.
Good
sir.
afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Pretty straightforward, I think, for the most part, with the report. The Victim Impact Panel this month is set to go as scheduled. I'd been mentioning before that if we were hitting capacity, we might add another session to it somewhere in there, and we have not yet hit that capacity. So I'm expecting those to start bouncing back up now that there's been more sentencing happening and things like that. The Traffic Safety Board did meet and started kicking off some of our plans on what we want to do for this year. And among those things, we also had to update some of the appointments. So those are on your list, and I see that they're down there later on to accept those appointments, hopefully. And then bicycle safety will be getting back into the schools this spring. May, June is when that target will be, but starting to look ahead at what we can do to get back into the schools some more. I did make some stops last year to get that going again after 2020 was called off, but I'd like to get back into more of them. It was a pretty strong program before the pandemic, so hopefully we can get it back closer to that. And then, so that's all I have on the report. And
Mr. Rumfeld?
On the committee, on the Traffic Safety Board, I know we've addressed other committees we've been appointed. How do you pick do they apply for it, or do you?
generally kind of been through discussions, and we make sure, that there are some, in our bylaws, there are some requirements. We try to make sure we've got all the legislative districts covered, look for different areas, so that we've got, people in highways, in the highway departments, members of law enforcement, other groups that are around and into things. There's a representative from Ardent Solutions because they do so much with the child passenger safety and with the bus routes and all of that. So we do spread it around and try to keep it up. And then as one comes open, who can we get to fill that spot too? So.
Yeah, I see the appointments all look really good. I'm familiar with all of them. The other question to put you on the spot is, do you guys discuss County Road 12 much? Have any ideas on it?
We have had some discussions on County Road 12, and at one point we do have a representative on the Traffic Safety Board who's from Alfred State College. So we do get a little bit of discussion going on that from time to time. And the traffic with the college students picks up through there for sure, but there's kind of a limit to what can be done. We certainly recognize that law enforcement's there and does everything they can. We have Wellsville PD representation there too, so they've got it when they get into Wellsville and getting out to the Wellsville campus. And but it's generally, and I assume that this is the part of County Road 12 that you're referring to, and not the road in general.
Right, yeah, the traffic and the.
But the college tries to do everything they can to encourage their students to drive responsibly and do their thing, but
We do have a game plan with Zone Sergeant Giardini and Gus and the chiefs from Alfred and
Yep.
Andover. We're working together, but it's just been nonstop. I mean, just the last week, my phone's been blowing up and asked if we could do more about it. But I don't know if there's any grants out there or any. I've been looking, but I know Traffic Safety Board had any they could.
Yeah, we can keep our eyes open for anything. I don't think we've identified anything in the past that could be used to help with that. We've looked into the possibilities of having someone go in and kind of offer up a speech to the students or something, and I don't even know how that would work. I mean, telling college kids to slow down has already been done, and yeah. There's also has been a piece to it with, to go back to Mr. Barnes' point of the day, the bail reform and such, that for a long time, and especially with courts were down, they were picking up some of the same drivers over and over because they'd get their ticket, but they wouldn't have sentencing, they wouldn't have to pay the fine, so they never really saw the repercussion of it, and they would just get another one. So it's been a challenge for sure, and it's not one that is new. I mean, that's been a challenge for quite some time, and everyone's trying to do what they can, I think, to help with it. But
Any other questions on his report?
then the only other thing I'll mention is I do have an MOE listed on there, but I think through some discussion this morning, we've decided we're going to hold off on that for now, and I got a couple corrections to make to it.
Okay. All right. Anything else then for Mr. Perkins? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, this would be Mr. Starks, Director of Probation. Good afternoon, sir.
Afternoon, everyone. You have my monthly report in front of you.
Pretty self-explanatory. Any questions for Mr. Starks?
I do have one, add something to it that I forgot to include. Last month, we received a letter from the Office of Court Administration that went out to all pretrial release programs in the state. And under the bail reform in 2020, all pretrial service programs had to be certified by OCA. And most every program that I'm aware of got a provisional certification, which is what we got. This year, they're requiring every program to complete a survey. And based on, and there's points attached to the questions that they are asking. And based on your total points, you're going to get a rating level of 1, 2, or 3. 1 being you'll be a provisional appointment for, or a provisional certification for 1 year. Level 2 will be for 2 years, and level 3 will be for 3 years. We have to submit that by March 18th. So obviously, we have a lot of questions about it. I'm going to a meeting in early March with other probation directors around the state. Our oversight agency, Office of Probation and Correctional Alternatives, really doesn't have any say in the matter because OCA now oversees pretrial service programs. So I think looking at a survey, I think we're in better shape than some counties because we've had our pretrial services program for many years and we do quite a bit with it other than just monitor individuals. We make referrals to service agencies. We try to get individuals help. And we also, if they don't show up, we're making reports to the court. And if they're in violation, the court can issue the warrants and they can go back to jail. So I think just by looking at it, I think we're okay. But I do have some concerns when they ask about what are you using for a risk assessment when in the bail reform legislation they said there was no approved risk assessment. So I'm concerned if I say we're not using anything and they're going to ding us for it when I don't understand. So we have questions that we need to ask and find out. But I just want to let you know that that's there. I anticipate we should get at least a level 2, maybe enough points to get a level 3. And then, of course, on that, top of that is Governor Hochul's, in her budget proposal, is $10 million for pretrial service programs around the state. Now, I don't know after downstate gets their share how much is going to be left over for us upstate. But we're also wondering now, will that be doled out based on the levels that we receive on this survey? So remains to be seen. But just wanted to keep you informed on that, that's what's going on with the pretrial part of our alternatives to incarceration programs.
Thank you. It's always something new, huh?
What would you say the dollar amount was on that?
From Governor Hochul,
Yeah.
I think it was 10 million.
Which won't go very far. No, really, no.
Then I have this MOE.
Okay.
A number of years ago at a statewide summer conference, the president, I guess, of Audubon gave us a presentation about their ability to host servers for their program. And at the time, we didn't too concerned about it or think too much about it, but subsequently I've had some conversations with Mr. Hooker. And last year we were talking about it, and he thought it would probably be a good thing for us to look into this and let Audubon take over the responsibility, because if there is a data breach, from the information I've heard, it can be very expensive to the county to, I forget what the word is, but basically to clean that mess up. Potential lawsuits and, who knows what all. So the cost for the first year is $7,500. It's already in the budget for this year. And there is the subject, as it says, to an annual 5% price escalation. So I'm just asking permission to enter into this agreement with Audubon to take over those duties.
Mr. Healy moves that. A second, please. Mr. Harris. Discussion. Mr. Harris.
Thanks. Maybe a question for Mr. Hooker. What responsibility does the county itself have now? Well, let's take a step back. When you say hosting, you mean that they are basically, we're utilizing their storage for your documents, case management documents?
Right. We're utilizing, it's on one of our servers at the moment, correct?
Yes, it's currently on one of our servers.
And
It
does
will
that, I'm sorry, does that differ from other departments that have similarly sensitive documents? I'm thinking DA or county attorney or social services or.
The way that this program has morphed, it makes sense to put it out into the cloud. That's where the program itself will be running along with all the documents. So Bob Stark's office is now meeting probationers, in Richburg and Wellsville and stuff like that. So instead of putting holes through our firewall, it's already out there. So it's someone else's, the cloud's responsibility or the program owner's responsibility at this point, if you approve this.
It seems like an expensive way to manage this kind of issue if you have to enter into separate contracts with each software company for their particular documents, doesn't it?
Yes and no. A cost of a server's $10,000. So you're spreading some of that cost out. There's also licensing that we don't have, the program maintenance. It's a whole combination of things. It is slightly more expensive to put things in the cloud, but security-wise, it's usually better. And with this particular program, since most of the access or a lot of the access is external as well, it just makes sense.
How many other similar contracts do we have across the county, do you suppose?
I don't have a number right off the top of my head.
More than 10?
I would say less than 10 currently, but that is probably going to change. The cloud, we've been holding off on the cloud as an IT as a whole, but things are going that way.
Okay, thank you.
I think it's fair to say that our current practice with the servers that we have will change in the near future anyways, and that this isn't atypical. I think maybe the DA's office also has an arrangement with the cloud for their information for discovery. I think this is probably a very smart move, and I know Mr. Hooker vetted the software arrangement.
Other questions? Mr. Healy.
I guess that leads into what I was going to ask here. The IT director, Mr. Hooker, you are recommending that we go through with this approval of this, right?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, and the county administrator also recommends that we approve this.
Yes, that's actually the county policy. No software can be purchased or maintained until the IT director and the county administrator sign off. So yes, we both have.
Thank you.
Okay. Other questions? Anyone? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay, very good. Mr. Starks, thank you, sir.
Thank you, everyone.
Oh,
For Mr. Stark, before he leaves, I see you have another one of your employees here with you today that maybe not all the legislators, certainly maybe some of the new legislators aren't familiar with, and I was just wondering if you'd care to introduce him to everybody.
Certainly, I have Supervisor Scott Grantier over here. Supervisor Jessica McKnight's back in the corner, and the gentleman in red is our highly trained probation intern for the semester. So his
good.
name is Nathan Hatch.
Okay, thank you.
welcome.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, sir. Gilbert Green. Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon, everyone. Any questions on my report? Mr. Stocking did ask me what I found out for Harrington's. Sunoco owned the equipment. They had a pressure test on the tank. It failed. They couldn't justify putting money in to put in a new tank, so they took everything and went home.
Okay. Any questions for Mr. Green?
I got one other thing.
Yes, sir.
I found
Go
in the
for it.
State and Union in January 18th, the January 17th, 1947, like a little before my time. And Al Corwin, Allegheny County Sealer Weights and Measures, made an interesting observation. The tragic rise in prices, which now sees many necessary food items reaching well towards $1 a pound mark, and which brought new high in most cost of living, has placed a new and more important meaning on any shortage in weight and measure responsible for making sure everything from grocery store scales to gas pumps are giving customers a fair shake. Corbin urged officials, the public, and shopkeepers to be diligent and fair. Full weight and measure is of vital importance to everyone, but is now of tragic importance to those whose income has shown little or no increase since pre-war levels. And it's even more important today.
The more things change, the more they remain the same.
Yeah, and I just finished my state report, and we had better than 99% compliance with all the equipment in Allegheny County this past year.
Good. Excellent. Any other questions for Mr. Green? Is that it, sir?
That's it.
Outstanding. Thank you very much.
See you later,
Nope.
Mr. Harris.
Sheriff Whitney. Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon. I submitted my report if you have any questions. And just to get back on the County Route 12, I would say that we did assign a couple of our deputies up there last summer, and we did put our speed trailer up there a couple of times to try to help.
Mr. Chairman,
Sir.
just want to congratulate and thank the sheriff for his reappointment as a trustee with the State Sheriff's Association. We appreciate the county having strong leadership representation up in Albany, and congratulate you for your efforts.
Thank you.
Yeah, I also would like to say that, Sheriff, that's nicely done. Thank you. Mr. Rumfeld.
I'd like to thank the sheriff on County Road 12 because Sergeant Mahoney, he's let him adjust his hours to assist us on our high traffic times, and so he has been a real help.
Excellent. Thank you. Mr. Harris.
If the sheriff would be willing to give red lights and maybe some radar to Mr. Curran and myself, we'll be happy to sit at the end of our driveway, and we can radio in for you.
I don't think he wants to go down that road.
It's one of those things where you just, how do you stop it? I mean, the only thing you can really do is write tickets, and if the kids don't care whether they get a ticket, it's just, I mean, we even sent the Amy Stock trailer up there the year we had it and put it on campus so they could see the results.
Yeah.
And, you know, it just, kids are kids, I guess. They're just, it's hard to get them to slow down.
Any other questions on the sheriff's report? Got a lot of figures here, a lot of information.
Want to hear my part on bill reform? I'm sure most of you saw the news in Cuba the other night, or whether you did or not, where they spotted a kid wandering around in the middle of the night and found out that he had been throwing bricks through the window at the Opera House, and he had actually poured gasoline through the windows after he had broke them with the purpose of burning it down. Apparently, he's an anti-vaxxer, and he knew they were having a vaccine clinic coming up, so he wanted to stop that. Obviously, they arrested him, but they had to turn him loose. If anybody thinks that purports safety in Cuba, then I don't know what to tell them. That's ridiculous.
Yeah, absolutely, I agree
mean,
with you.
that could have been terrible. I mean, you could use the whole block
Yeah,
of those buildings, you know? It probably would have lost the whole block, so.
How old was that individual?
I don't recall, yeah, a young boy.
violence is never the answer. Unfortunately, sometimes you have to let them go pending their court date. Mr. Ricky.
Somebody acting like that is not rational, isn't that a chance to get them into a psych ward?
I would
Very
lobby.
irrational behavior. Isn't that enough to get them a
You could
ride to
try,
the psych ward?
Yeah, you could try, but.
I would lobby for that.
Yeah, I would say that would be a possibility, but I know over the years, I've taken several people to the hospital for those kinds of, and ended up sitting there for 2 hours and taking them home. So,
Yeah.
when
Not to
they did
second
the-
guess people that are smarter than me, but that's almost, in my mind, terrorism. But, Mr. Rumpfeld.
And one of the problems when you ask the psych ward is when they did the bail reform, one of our infamous Governor Como closed a lot of the psych wards in the area. I mean, we have to go like to Elmira. If Olean's full, then we have to go to Elmira or, I mean, even further. So there's really no place to put them.
Other questions for the sheriff? Sheriff, comments and so forth. Anything else for us? I know you got MOEs here.
I got some MOEs. I believe the first one is asking for permission to apply for the Homeland Security statewide interoperable communications grant.
So moved.
Mr. Harris, second. Mr. Rumpfeld, discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? One down.
The second one is to apply for the New York State Department of Homeland Security PSAP operations grant.
So moved.
Mr. Harris, Mr. Healy, discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? And that is carried. Thank you.
And the third one is asking permission to enter into a contract to ensure that our Sheriff's Office nutritional program provides adequate meals for the incarcerated individuals at the jail, and that is included in this year's budget.
Mr. Rumpfeld moves it. Second, Mr. Harris. Okay, discussion? Sheriff, is this a mandated item?
Yes, we have to,
I suspected so.
yeah, we have to make sure that we have the right calories and proper nutrition. So we have to have somebody that can verify that.
Okay. Any other discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? And that is carried. Thank you very much. Anything
that's all
else
I
you'd like
have.
to add before you leave?
That's all I have. Thank you.
Outstanding. Thank you, Sheriff. Brenda, are we not going to do this? This is the traffic board appointments? We are going to do it? Okay. Mr. Healy, sir.
I would be glad to move your Traffic Safety Board appointments. I know all these individuals, and I think they'll be, they do a fine job and continue to do a fine job, and it's my pleasure to do that. Move it.
Excellent, sir. Thank you. A second. Mr. Rumfeld. Discussion on this, please. Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And that is carried. Okay. Old business, ladies and gentlemen. Mr. Rumfeld.
Just on the EMS, three legislators attended the EMS chiefs and captains meeting. They actually all got along that night. They've presented some good ideas. They're gonna get back to us. Some of us are gonna go to the next meeting. They're gonna give us numbers and figures, and we'll have more. But
That's
it's not a
excellent.
dead horse. We're still working on everything on that end.
Excellent. Very good, sir. Thank you. Other old business. New business. Good of the order. A motion to adjourn. Oh, is that good of the order?
Now, I was gonna make a motion to adjourn.
That's outstanding. Go ahead and say it.
With no other business, appears to be no other business to come before the Public Safety Committee, I'd like to make a motion to adjourn.
Well done. Thank you. Mr. Harris will second that. All in favor, say aye. Aye. We are adjourned.